Hey, welcome to the second video lesson in the photo restoration unit. Today is going to be a fun one. You'll probably finish early and you'll have a lot of time to play around. And I can't urge you enough to try these techniques you're going to learn today with the cloning tools. Just try your hand at them, play around with them a lot, and they're a lot of fun. So let's get started. In Photoshop, let's go to File, Open. We're going to go to Courses, Art, Computer Graphic Lessons, Photoshop Lessons, and we're going to scroll down again to that photo restoration folder. And we're going to open up 4 different files here. We're going to slowly work our way through these. So you're going to open up the 03A end, the 03A start, the 03B end, and the 03B start. So I'm going to click on the first one. I'm going to hold down my Shift key because that's going to select all of them. And I'm going to click on the 03B start. So select all 4 and then click Open. So let's not pay attention to the 3B yet. Let's just focus on the 3A end and the 3A start. So you notice on the start file, we've got a rip in the corner of our photograph and we've got some sprinkler heads here we're going to get rid of. Now in the finish, it has you put this text on the top. I'm not going to make you do that though, okay? But this one's going to be super fast and super fun. So let's go ahead and close that end file. We don't need it. And let's drag our start file back up to the top. Stop the video if you haven't opened up these files and do that now. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So what we're working through is we're actually working through step 4 in those 8 steps, which is to remove unwanted objects. In this case, we've got some sprinkler heads we want to remove, and we want to remove or repair this torn edge in here, okay? And today, with this first video lesson, we're going to use 2 tools. We're going to use the Spot Healing Brush tool and the Clone Stamp tool. And these tools that we're going to use are in 2 different drawers. So we're going to start by finding these 2 drawers. So the first drawer is right here, and in it is the Spot Healing Brush tool, the Healing Brush tool, the Patch, Content Aware, and then the Red Eye tool. And then the next drawer down, which is here, has the Clone Stamp tool, and then something called the Pattern Stamp tool, which we're not going to get into, okay? But we're going to start in that first drawer, and I want you to click and hold until you drag to the Spot Healing Brush tool. So all of these tools work just like a brush, so you're just going to paint across the screen. But what it does is rather than paint with a color, it paints with a part of the picture. Okay, so you're actually not removing, you're covering up. So think of it as like makeup cover up or whiteout. Okay, we're covering over those mistakes. So the way the Spot Healing Brush tool is, it works for little imperfections, so little spots, hence the term the Spot Healing Brush. And what it does is if you brush across it, your slight imperfection, it's going to look at the pixels that surround it and it's going to try to match it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the appropriate size. So you want to make sure that with your Spot Healing Brush, you kind of sort of want a brush that's big enough to cover the imperfection without being too large. So just a little bit bigger than the imperfection. And I would suggest for you that you're going to pick a generally soft edge brush. You can change you should be able to change the presets in here. If you want to play around with that a little bit more, you can. But by default, you should have a soft edge brush. And I would suggest about size 30 pixels and leave it set to normal. If you want to zoom in, you can zoom in. So I'm going to zoom in on my sprinkler head here. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag across that. So it's going to look like it's starting to paint dark, and then you release your mouse button and notice it covers it over and it kind of blends it together. So the Spot Healing Brush not only will paint over it, but it kind of blends it to try and soften it. So stop the video and try that now. All right, let's gotta move on over to our other sprinkler head here, and we're gonna try it again. Now if it didn't work, great, hit your Control Z and undo that. All right, so that's your Spot Healing Brush. So if I wanted to repair this flaw, the Spot Healing Brush, it has limitations. It only works for small imperfections like that, where it's surrounded by an area that's very similar in texture or color. This lesson, this photo specifically, is great for retouching because it makes it really easy because you've got this large grassy area and it's kind of a muddled texture. Where you struggle is when you have a complex area, but we're starting you off pretty easy here. All right, so with the Spot Healing Brush, let's just try it. If I tried it on my torn edge here, notice it kind of works okay. I could go through and keep working this, but to be honest, it's going to start to look really patterned. Okay, so I'm going to show you a better tool. When you have a big section like this that you want to replace, my suggestion is actually the clone stamp tool. So we're gonna go in the drawer and we're gonna grab that clone stamp tool. And we're gonna change our brush size. So this time around, I wanna be a little bit bigger. This is where you can change the shape and size of your brush. So make sure you have just a general soft edge brush, about size 50. But if you click and drag, you're gonna get this that pops up. And it says, if you read it, you have to alt-click to define the source. What that means is you have to tell the computer, well, what area am I painting over it with? So you have to sample from your area, another area in the image. So I'm gonna come somewhere over here. I want it to look somewhat like this grass. I'm gonna hold down my Alt key and I'm gonna get crosshairs. That tells me where I'm sampling from, and I'm simply gonna click my mouse button. It doesn't look like anything happened, but now if I come across here, notice it's gonna show me what it would paint like. So if I start clicking and dragging, if you look really closely, I also have a little cursor that's moving from where I sampled. You have to be careful because if that cursor hovers over another part, like say that statue of a pagoda, notice it paints with that. I don't want that. So you might have to keep resampling. So I'm gonna sample, I'm gonna paint a little bit, I'm gonna come back and resample in a better area again. So resampling is a common technique to make it look like it all blends. And you kind of just, I'm picking at random spots. I just know what basic color I want. So go ahead and stop the video and try the clone stamp tool. All right, great. If you are done with this, make sure you save this in your lessons folder. So we're gonna go to Save As, we're gonna save it in the cloud. And let's call it, again, your first name. And let's call it Lesson 2B. Lesson 2B. And then click Save. All right, now we're ready to go on to the next one. We're continuing to work through these cloning tools, so let's go ahead and close that. And let's pull our 3B start down. All right, so we've got this young woman here. We're gonna remove what look like bullet holes, but they're actually gaffing holes where they drill for the lines into the side of the mountain. So we're gonna remove some gaffing holes over here, and then some other little imperfections over here, and then a little bit of graffiti here. And then I'm also gonna even throw a challenge to you to see if you can remove the girl. All right, so let's go ahead and let's close the end file. And let's save our start file in the cloud under lessons. Let's call it first name 2C, okay? And then hit save. All right, and now we're off and rolling. So I'm gonna show you some new tools. So far we've learned the spot healing brush, which is really easy to use, but only works for small blemishes. And we've learned the clone stamp tool. Today with this lesson, this video lesson, you're gonna learn the healing brush tool and the patch tool. And both of those are in this drawer. So the spot healing brush tool, you don't have to define where it's sampling from, and it's gonna blend it together, okay? The problem with that sometimes is you don't have a lot of control over how it blends or where it blends from, especially if I'm looking here. And the area around this is really, really light. So if I use my spot healing brush, see how it kind of looks funky? It doesn't blend in with that darker area that's there. Instead, I would want to use the healing brush. So what the healing brush is it combines the best thing about the spot healing brush and that clone stamp tool, because it allows you to define the values or where you want it to sample from. So stop the video and I want you to look at the healing brush tool. And we're going to zoom in over on that graffiti. So we've got zoomed in on our graffiti, we've got our healing brush tool. Remember, the healing brush tool is the second one down in that drawer. And we want to define what area it samples from. So how do you define, like you did with the clone stamp tool? Right, the Alt key. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to sample. Now I'm going to click and drag, but the nice thing about this is, like I said, it blends it a little bit. So it's still going to blend like that spot healing brush tool does, but you also sample. All right, so stop the video and try to remove that graffiti now using the healing brush tool. All right, excellent. Now, if you want to take a couple minutes and clean up any other areas over here, you can, but don't fix these gaffing holes. All right, we're going to fix the gaffing holes with the last tool that I promised to show you, which is the patch tool. So we're going to, now let's zoom in first on the blemish that's over here. And we're going to grab that patch tool. The patch tool works differently. I'll be honest, I don't use the patch tool a whole lot. because it has some limitations. You can't control it quite as much. But what the patch tool does is it allows you to replace big areas kind of in one time, but still blending it together. And you do that by drawing a selection border around the imperfection or what you want to replace. You're going to get some marching ants. And then you're going to click on the inside of it and you're going to drag it to the area that you want it to kind of look like, and it will blend with the area that was there. All right? So stop the video and do that now. When you're done using that, go ahead and go to deselect. All right, I just want to show you the limitations why that tool isn't always the greatest. So I'm going to stay with the patch tool. Don't do this. I just want you to watch. Like if I wanted to remove this girl and I had that patch tool, remember it's going to blend. So like, let's say I'm just going to start with her hand. If I move it to the area I want it to be, notice it still blends it with what the pixels that were there. Well, the pixels that were there were blue, so now it's tinging all that rock color blue. So the patch tool doesn't always work the greatest. I show you all these different tools because you really do need to know all of the different tools that are there so that you can fine tune and use them in the way that your problem requires, because every replacement is going to be different. Every time you need to remove something, it's going to be slightly different because it's a different type of photo. So you kind of need to know all four of those, right? But basically, the clone stamp tool, your spot healing and healing brush are really important. If you want to play around with today a little bit the content aware move tool, you can, but just know we don't use it a whole lot. Again, I prefer the other ones. I think they're just much better. Okay, so the last challenge I'm going to throw down today is I'm going to see if you can remove the woman completely using any and all of those tools. You might even think about combining some of those tools together. Give it a try, see what you got. That's it for today's cloning project or lesson. If you are done early, I strongly suggest opening up another picture and having some fun with this and getting to know those cloning tools a little bit better. Good job.